so special to be sitting here right now with my son, Cody, and my daughter, Kaylee. It's a miracle because I didn't think I would ever get them back. In 2006, I came to Mission Messiah and completed the program, stuck around, and 3 years after I graduated, decided to move home. It was probably very important for me to stay in Odessa, and I went back home against the counsel of my spiritual leaders. They had to check in their spirit about me moving home, but I moved home anyway. I knew in my spirit that it was not the right thing to do because I did not have any accountability there or any of the people that knew the red flags around me. My little brother committed suicide in 2011. I was in shock. The way the whole night played out, me, my mom, and my dad are the ones who ultimately found him. And that took me into a downward spiral, eventually leading into a relapse that lasted for over a year, and it was probably the worst year that I've had ever in my life.
By 14, I was into heavy drugs. Lost my father in between. He got diagnosed with lung cancer when I was 12, and I watched him die day by day for a year. And he was my hero, so it devastated me. And he told me, he said, "Connie, you know I'm dying." And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Don't cry." Well, I didn't. And before I knew it, I was angry at God. I was angry at everybody.
Mission Messiah is an 18-month program created by the leading of Jesus to be a refuge for women and women with children that were living without hope. Many of our women were involved in drug addiction, alcoholism, victims of sexual abuse, domestic violence, and in deep despair. Our Leadership and Life Skills program revolves around the teaching of Jesus Christ and His principles of living. The 18-month program consists of 12 months on-campus residential development through classes,
I want to quote a verse out of Hebrews,
scripture memory, and practical life skills and prayer. Our work training program, WOW Warehouse, and Zip Business Services were created to equip women for successful lives.
I was very angry, very confused. We had a lot of unanswered questions. It consumed me. It consumed me, the grief, once I was able to, sit down and absorb it all. 6 weeks later, my mom went back to work and I was by myself. I would even go sit up at work with her, just to try to not be by myself because I knew what I was capable of if I sat and just wasn't around any accountability. And that time came where I wasn't around any accountability, and I got a Facebook message from a girl that I had never hung around with really, but had met previously. When Jacob passed away, when my mom went back to work, I was by myself, and I got that Facebook message saying, "Hi, I'm back in town. Do you want to come over?" And of course I went over. And that was the beginning of the relapse. I wasn't prepared. I didn't know how she was doing. I just knew that I needed a friend. And she was welcoming with open arms. And I showed up there, and it was a quick, I had some cash on me. It was a quick meeting. I did not go in there intending to buy any drugs, but that's what happened. And instead of going to get a glass pipe like I usually would, I went straight to CVS and I got some syringes. It is easier to get drugs than it is to drink. These days, the drugs run rampant anywhere you go.
I was living with my grandma at first, but then I moved in with my tia, and I shared a room with her. I felt more comfortable with her, and so I stayed there for a while, and Cody stayed with my grandma.
When it all had happened, I was 6 years old at the time, and I didn't know how to take it. So when my mom had left, it was hard on my aunt and my grandma, and my grandma was making sure that we didn't get around any of those friends that my mom hung out with, and she would be there for us. And one night they had gone into a fight, and I was in my grandma's room, and my grandma walked in, and I fell on my knees, and I said, "I just want a normal life," and I just kept screaming it, and I was crying really hard.
As a drug addict, your intentions are always good. And you almost think you're doing your kids a favor by giving them to somebody else who can take care of them. And I would justify everything that I did. I didn't come around because every time I came around, they would nag me. I would blame them for everything. When my son cried out that night that he just prayed for a normal life, I was cut off. I was not allowed to go back to my mom's house. The police would be called. And that devastated me, I was okay with being a part-time mom, showing up whenever I wanted, thinking that it was okay. But truly, when you're that strung out, you don't care or even realize the effect that you have on the family. You think that you're just hurting yourself. You think that you're not hurting anybody else. You think that your kids are better off. I was heartbroken. But my mom knew that by pulling these kids away from me, that it wouldn't be long after that I sought out help.
We would just pray and pray. We would talk to God about hoping that she would come back to us and hoping that she would get sober. And it was a hard time for me and my sister.
And it took about a year of them praying. And I remember my mom telling me that prayer that they would pray for me was for God to make it as hard as possible for me to be able to find drugs. And it got to a point where it got really hard. I was living on the streets. I was in an extremely abusive relationship.
Zip on over to zip, 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 zip.
Your source for business and color printing, signage, graphic art design, wide format printing, and custom embroidery. Zip is an authorized FedEx shipping location.
943 North Grandview in Odessa.
Sip on over to sip, 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 sip.
It was a dead giveaway that I had relapsed. I attempted to take my own life several times during the relapse. People that knew me knew something was wrong. Miss Tammy knew. It was very heavy on my spirit to come back to the mission, but I was very ashamed. I was living on the streets. I was in an extremely abusive relationship. He would beat me on a daily basis and almost took my life. I got put in the hospital. I had a broken tailbone, other fractured that took a long time for me to recover. And that relationship is what ultimately got me off of drugs.
They say you plan your own relapse. And so, and I believe that. I think you know ahead of time because you're already listening to the voices. Relapse is, for me, the little lies that you begin to buy. That I could smoke, and that I could drink, and that I could hang out with certain people. And those are the first feel-goods that you start petting and eventually lead to the big relapse, which is how it happened for me. In the very beginning, I thought I could drink because although I had battled with alcohol before, my main demon that I beat was meth. And so I could drink and bought that lie. People that have climbed out of that pit, I can't sit around the pit because I'll be back in the pit. Even just visiting my hometown. I mean, I love my family and I love some of my friends. It's like a rope tied around me and slowly just begins to pull you in that direction.
I was running away from that town as fast as my little legs could move. And my parents, after I got well enough to be able to even walk again, they drove me to a small town, and I did attend another program. And that program served its purpose for the time that I was there, but I still felt a void, a strong void in my life, because I could not have my children at that treatment facility with me, and it was a year long, and I just didn't know if I could bear being sober, you know, when all these feelings rushing back without my kids there. Me being at that other place 2 days, I was calling my mom, come pick me up, and she was saying, no, we just dropped you off. If you're still not content in 2 weeks, call us back and we'll figure something out.
I've been to rehab 3 times. There's something there that's empty. There's emptiness in there. The AA meetings it's not filling it. I'd be watching the clocks waiting to get out of those meetings. It was good, it worked good for some people, but not for me. And the standing up saying I'm an addict and I'm an alcoholic, it didn't settle with me.
And I prayed, whatever it took, just get me back to Odessa. If I can get back to the mission, I'll be able to get my kids back and I can have them and I can actually live a life in a town that I know that I can, you know, flourish in with my children. They had fundraisers and they would go to different states, different cities. Well, I'd been praying this prayer for 2 weeks and it was my turn to be able to go on a fundraiser. And my fundraiser was in Odessa. So we do this fundraiser, I get to Odessa, and I'm struggling. I'm praying, God, do I need to stay or do I need to go? Well, I decided to stay. And I told the director that was with us that I wasn't going back with them. We were on past 2nd Street in Odessa at a Dairy Queen, and I had my one little bag, my pillow, no cell phone, and I go sit in that Dairy Queen and I'm asking them, can I borrow your phone? So I'm calling everybody I know to call. Nobody was in town. Everybody was out of town. I was talking to Miss Tammy on the phone. She was praying with me, giving me numbers to shelters, giving me numbers to somewhere where I could stay. And this lady approaches my table. And I'll never forget her face. She said, you know, she's like, I'm not even from this part of town. She said, but the Lord told me to come to this Dairy Queen. She said, and I didn't know why. I couldn't figure out why. I needed to come to this part of town. And she said, it's for you. She said, now I can assure you I'm not crazy. She said, but you're coming with me. And I said, okay. And she let me sleep at her house until I was able to go to the mission. I didn't even know if I would be accepted back in. I just showed up. I just showed up and prayed, you know, Lord, if this is where I need to be, which I know it is because you've gotten me this far, then please just make it happen. And here I am. I'm here today. That was February of 2013.
I heard about Mission Messiah a year ago in the Lubbock County Jail. And the one thing that really got to me was hearing the girls speak about that they memorized scripture and that they poured the Bible into you. And that it reminded me of being a little kid again, being that little girl learning all that. And it just, I had a longing in my spirit. And my friend Poppy, on the way down here, my mind was still foggy. And she said, Connie, you know Mission Messiah is down here. And I said, I know. And I said, God knows too. And I said, if he opens the doors for me, I'll be obedient. And before I knew it, here I was. I could feel life coming up inside of me, and it was coming back to God, running back to God is what it felt like.
Prior to me coming back to the mission, you know, me having my kids was out of the question. My parents were very protective over my kids, and they were telling me that I needed to prove myself before I even had a chance to have them back, and that they would let them come visit, you know, with my sister. My sister would bring them to come visit, but they would go back home. And I prayed diligently every morning. I cried out to the Lord and had people pray with me for the Lord to soften my parents' hearts, you know, so that I could have a second chance of being a mom again, and that I would not mess it up. I prayed to God. I said, I will not mess it up this time if you just give me this opportunity. And my sister would bring them, and they would get to stay the weekends. Like almost every weekend they would come stay with me during the school year. Then when summer got out, my mom said that the kids could come stay with me for part of the summer to see how it went, but then they would have to go home.
Our Thea would take us, and we could come and visit our mom for like a day, and then we'd have to go back home. And every time we did come up, we would have to leave, and me and my brother would just start bawling because we wanted to stay with our mom. And every time we would beg and ask, can we go live with our mom? And our grandma and grandpa would say, no, you cannot. And it took 4 months until we could. And my mom told me when we got there, she said, I have been praying for this moment, because she's been praying ever since she got there to have us back. And my grandpa and grandma said that my mom would never have us again.
Spring is blooming at WOW. New gifts, jewelry, pottery, and home decor pieces are arriving daily. Spring is in the air, and color makes everything better. Fresh, beautiful, and fun. You will find it always at WOW. Wow Warehouse, 815 North Grandview in Odessa. See you soon.
My mom said that the kids could come stay with me for part of the summer to see how it went, but then they would have to go home. Well, they came for the summer and they are still here. Jesus had a different plan. I had done so much in that relapse to my family, unspeakable things, and they chose to forgive me because they love me and they love my kids and they want what's best for my kids. We have joy. We have peace. We're all still hurting inside, but the comfort of the Lord is our strength. And He helps us to be a family, you know. He gives us comfort, and He allows me to be a mom. A sober mom, a functioning mom, a happy mom. And I get to share my life with them. You know, God gave me these kids, and I'm gonna do right by them. And He's opened so many doors for me to stay in this area. And I'm very grateful for that. We have our own house, and it's wonderful to have our own place. I've always rented places out and, you know, never stuck around, never finished a lease. And now we have this home that we've been at for over a year, and we're just so grateful that we can have a life together and not have to worry about where we're gonna sleep or me worrying about how I'm gonna get to my mom's to go see my kids, because I have them with me now and I'm raising them and I'm able to be a mother to them.
Normal, it looks great. I'm living the new normal. I get to buy new shoes, clothes. She can afford food on the table. Life is great right now.
My spare time, I play softball. And I have amazing friends on there. I'm learning the guitar right now, and I'm playing the violin. So I'm practicing for a concert that's coming up. I'm just grateful that I can be with my mom again, and I'm just happy I can be with my family.
I go to work, I pick the kids up from school, then we go to practice, then we go home, we cook dinner, go to bed. It's busy and I love it.
How's your relationship with your parents?
Oh my goodness. The Lord has completely restored my relationship with my parents and my brothers and my sister. And that is something that I never thought I would have back, was their love and acceptance. And I have it. I'm closer to my parents now than I've ever been in my whole life. And I go see them often. And it's truly a remarkable bond that we have now.
Joe, if you could say anything to a woman that's out there today where you've been, what would you tell her to do?
I would tell her to build up the strength, and even if you can't build up the strength, just take those steps forward to seeking out help, because what we think is possible here on earth, God can make possible. Any situation, no matter what you've done, no matter how long you've been away from your children, no matter what CPS or the court says, there can be restoration with your family, with your children, and the relationship that you can build with the Lord. That right there will change your life forever. It'll make you want to be a better person. I'm just so grateful that they accepted me back into the mission the second time, because I came with a lot of baggage this time around. And I feel like I have gotten healing above and beyond in areas that I didn't even know that I really needed healing in. I've got to deal with some of the most traumatizing things I've been through, sober. And I got to feel the pain, and I got to feel the heartache, and I got to deal with it, with the help of the Lord and the help of my friends. I got to go through that and not relapse. And now I can think of my brother, and I can miss him, and I can be sad for him, but I also have hope. He is not suffering anymore, regardless of what he was going through on this earth. He's not suffering anymore, and I have so much comfort in that. I can move on with my life and, just persevere, and bring glory to God's name, and know that Jesus healed my heart.
We hope that you have been blessed to see the reality of Jesus' power to transform a life. We would also ask that if you know a woman or a mother and a child in need of help, that you might go to missionmessiah.org and find the information and make it available to that person. We would also like to express to you that we're always in need of prayer warriors and financial support to make these wonderful things happen. May the Lord bless you.